Free agency got underway, and the LA Kings were very busy. But are they any better? That and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years. Also one of the co-hosts of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show now in its 19th year, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. So much to talk about with the start of free agency. We were all anticipating seeing what the Kings were going to do, who was going to be added to the team, and who would be leaving the team. And we will start with who has left. And that would be at the top of the list, defenseman Vladislav Gavrikov. As expected, as rumored, he did sign with the New York Rangers. Now, it's a 7-year deal worth $7 million per season. Now, the years are what I figured he would get. But I'm actually surprised he didn't get paid more than just $7 million a year. And I would have been absolutely fine had the LA Kings signed Gavrikov for 7 times 7. Now, yes, it's a long-term deal. And sure, at the end of the deal, he won't nearly be as good probably as he is at the beginning of the deal. But who cares? The Kings are in it to win it now, or so I'm told, right? So I don't think if you're in that kind of mode, if you're in that kind of mindset, and if you hire a GM in Ken Holland who's coming in to get you over the hump, and he's probably not going to be around for very long, I don't think that should be a problem. But it is very interesting how this whole Vladislav Gavrikov saga played out, and I don't have a good grasp on why we went from there to here, because it seemed to me that the re-signing of Vladislav Gavrikov was almost a formality. Things seemed so positive in that there was an aura about, you know, the organization and where things were at with what the comments Rob Blake had to say, the way Gavrikov seemed to be very happy here. It seemed like it was almost a foregone conclusion that he was going to stay. So what changed between now and then, if that is accurate? Obviously there was a GM change. How much did that impact things? Gavrikov made a change of agents. How much did that change things, if any? Did Gavrikov just decide he wanted to change of scenery for some reason? Did the Rangers just make a better deal? And if so, why weren't the Kings willing to match that deal? We talked about on a previous show, Ivan Provorov, who I thought might be a suitable replacement for Vladislav Gavrikov. He got an 8-year deal worth $8.5 million per season to re-sign with the Columbus Blue Jackets. And I thought Gavrikov would make something very similar. And I guess 7 times 7 is similar, but I thought he'd get paid more. I thought he'd get 8.5 to 9 million per season, and he didn't. So that's a bit of a surprise. But like I said, I am a little disappointed because I wanted the Kings to re-sign Gavrikov, that they didn't either match that offer or that Gavrikov wanted to take that offer. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if we're going to get an answer. I don't know if Gavrikov will say exactly why he left for New York. Was it simply because he got a better deal and that's that? I can understand the Kings, again, not wanting to pay a 7-year contract, but I think $7 million a year for Vladislav Gavrikov is very fair, and I think it's pretty reasonable. So disappointing that didn't work out, and maybe we'll get some clarity on why it didn't and what the Kings offered. And if Gavrikov just decided he didn't want to be in LA anymore, I don't know. I don't know if he will talk about that, if he'll even be asked about that by the folks in New York. But either way, after 179 games in Los Angeles, Vladislav Gavrikov has left. He was a very solid player here, seemed very well liked by fans and teammates, was a very solid performer, came over in the Jonathan Quick trade at the deadline from Columbus. And I liked Gavrikov. I liked pretty much everything about him. Yeah, sure, he's a little bit older, and you're paying for a long-term deal for an older player, and I know some people might be against that, and I get that, but he was the best defenseman on the Kings last season. He was very valuable, one of the MVP candidates of the team a year ago, and now you've lost that player. That's not a good thing. I did have someone ask me about tampering, and that subject came up in the news recently with some speculation that maybe the Maple Leafs would accuse the Vegas Golden Knights of tampering with Mitch Marner. Ultimately, they consummated that sign and trade, so that kind of went away. But we had heard a lot of rumors about the Rangers and Gavrikov way before, obviously, free agency opened up. Now, the rules are you're not supposed to have contact with the player until free agency begins. We all know that there are ways around that, and I'm sure that's what happened between the Rangers and Gavrikov. But it's really hard to prove tampering. You really need to have some sort of a smoking gun to be able to prove that. So if it happened that the NHL did find that the Rangers tampered with Vladislav Gavrikov, then that contract could be nullified or would be nullified, and the Rangers would be hit with a pretty big fine, and then Gavrikov would be a free agent again. I think it's a long shot to think that would happen. But somebody did ask me about it, and I thought it was interesting because, yeah, we have heard rumors about Gavrikov to the Rangers for quite a while, and it happened exactly the way a lot of people said it was going to happen. We know that Jordan Spence is gone. Yeah, that didn't happen on July 1st, happened on the second day of the draft. Mentioned it before, not surprised that he was moved. I am surprised that he only got a third round and a sixth round pick in return. He obviously wasn't happy with his minutes being slashed in the playoffs and getting benched for a playoff game. And we heard Ken Holland say that he likes to be a bit bigger and more experienced on the blue line. Stay tuned for that. And yes, Spence is a bit undersized at 5'11", 190, but he's still young at 24 and very reasonably priced at $1.5 million for the next 2 seasons. But apparently that didn't fit the mold of what Holland was looking for. And apparently it had been kind of communicated to Spence that he was probably going to be the 7th defenseman if he stayed with the Kings, and that wasn't to his liking. And so he eventually did ask for a trade, and the Kings were able to honor his request. And look, Jordan Spence certainly wasn't a star player. He certainly wasn't a player as valuable as a Vladislav Gavrikov. So his loss isn't a crippling loss. But like I said, he's young with room to improve, and he was cheap. And I think that's something that you need to keep in mind when you're dealing with these contracts. As expected, Tanner Jeannot has left 5 years, $3.4 million a year to sign with the Boston Bruins. I think the Kings would have been interested in re-signing him. He led the team in hits a year ago with 211. But he wanted out of LA. He wanted a bigger role on a team. I can tell you, had the Kings signed him to a 5-year deal, I would not have been in favor of that. I think that's way too long for a Tanner Jeannot. $3.4 million. Okay, I think it's about what he made with the Kings. Of course, they didn't sign him to that. Tampa Bay did, but the Kings traded for him. So, 5 years for Tanner Jeannot. No, thank you. Good luck, Tanner, in Boston. A quick 1-year stint for Tanner Jeannot in LA. Goalie David Rittich is gone. He signs a 1-year, $1 million deal with the New York Islanders, ending a 2-year run in LA. Finishes with a record of 29, 20, and 5 at 2.55 goals against average and a .902 save percentage. This past season, he was 16, 14, and 2. Great at home, terrible on the road. Big save Dave, 11, 3, and 2 at home. Of course, the Kings were great at home too. 2.29 goals against average and a .907 save percentage. On the road, he was 5 and 11, 3.44 goals against average and an .867 save percentage. It certainly seemed like the Kings were interested in upgrading at that position for the backup for Darcy Kemper. Who is staying for the LA Kings? We told you Andrei Kuzmenko gets the 1-year deal, $4.3 million. Love the deal, love the term for both the team and the player. Low risk for the Kings. He's going to be playing for his next contract, so he's going to be highly motivated. Of course, was very good for LA coming over the trade deadline. 22 games, not a very big sample size, but he did seem to fit in very well with the Kings. 5 goals, 12 assists, 17 points in 22 games. His 5 goals were all on the power play, so they wanted somebody to upgrade the power play. He absolutely did that. And Kuzmenko, 3 goals, 3 assists in 6 playoff games, and all 3 goals in the playoffs were power play goals as well. And the LA Kings did make a qualifying offer to forward Alex Laferriere. The qualifying offer is a 1-year deal with the team that extends or intends, I should say, to restructure a contract with a restricted free agent. The qualifying offer simply means that the team has given their intentions that they mean to re-sign this player. It's something you have to do to keep that player under your control. If you don't sign a player who's a restricted free agent to a qualifying offer, he then becomes an unrestricted free agent and can sign with any team. So no surprise there. The qualifying offer made to Alex Laferriere, they now will have time after they've made their intentions of keeping him to figure out a bridge deal for him. I think that Laferriere will get a 2 to 3 year deal for around $3 million per season. So the Kings are working on that, but Alex Laferriere, unless there's some trade that comes out of nowhere, will remain as an LA King. So we say goodbye to Vladislav Gavrikov, Tanner Jeannot, David Rittich, and Jordan Spence. We are keeping Vladislav Gavrikov and Alex Laferriere, or excuse me, I'm sorry, we're keeping Andrei Kuzmenko and Alex Laferriere. But the Kings are bringing in some new players. Who are those new players, and why is one of them my most hated player of all time? That is next on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in the game with your friends and get sunburned at the beach while you're also on your app having some fun with the FanDuel app. You can track your favorite matchups. The app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events, whether it's a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride into the ninth inning. FanDuel makes it easy for you to be part of the action and fun. New to FanDuel? Well, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, obviously the LA Kings had some holes to fill, and they added 5 players on the opening day of free agency. One of them was a surprise, at least sort of, as the LA Kings signed forward Cory Perry to a 1-year deal worth $4 million. The contract is a combination of base salary and bonuses, which gives the Kings some additional flexibility around the salary cap. Breakdown is $2 million in salary, another $2 million in bonuses. And when I saw the news come down that Cory Perry was joining the LA Kings, I let out a deep sigh, kind of closed my eyes. And then I said to my wife, who hates Cory Perry as much as I do, the LA Kings just signed Cory Perry. And her response was, "Oh, F that." I mean, she said the word, not just the F. Now, I hate Cory Perry. We've talked about this when someone made the suggestion, I think on a fan feedback show, about possibly adding Cory Perry. I hated him with the Ducks. I hated him with the Oilers. I don't know that I can go so far as to say I will hate him as a King, but I will not cheer for Cory Perry. There's just too much history there. And he is most likely the most hated hockey player for me personally. And the idea of him wearing a Kings jersey kind of makes me want to throw up in my mouth, to be honest with you. Now, I've told you guys I'm a fan first. I've worked in sports broadcasting for a long, long time. But I was a Kings fan before I got into that, and I plan on being a Kings fan after I stop doing stuff like this. And, you know, that's who I am, for better or for worse. And I can't separate that from, you know, being someone who does this show. I'm going to be a fan broadcaster. I don't mean to be a homer, and I think I can separate, you know, my feelings for, you know, being objective in my opinions. And I'm going to do that right now. But I hate Cory Perry. I don't like him. And I can tell you, if he scores a goal or many goals for the LA Kings, I will be happy that a goal has been scored to help my team win. I won't be happy for Cory Perry, and I won't cheer for him. I'll endure it, even if he does well. I'll be glad that the team's doing well, but I can't. I'm sorry. Maybe it's petty, maybe it's immature, but I cannot bring myself to cheer for that guy. There's too much hatred. There's too many years invested in not liking him. So I'm not cheering for him. I did have a friend of mine text me who was equally upset, and he made an interesting comment that I'm going to get into in a moment. But I can separate what is maybe good for the team from my own personal feelings. And we talked about this. We talked about maybe the Kings getting Sam Bennett or a Brad Marchand or a guy like that, a guy who brings that kind of element, a guy who will stir it up, a guy who can perform in the playoffs. Some people will say you hate playing against them, but you love him on your team. In the case of Cory Perry, for me, that's not the case. I do not love him on my team. But if he can help the Kings have success, if he can help them win, if he can help them get some playoff success, I will accept it and work through it. But I can't bring myself to cheer for him. But I get the signing. I do. He's a guy who gets it done in the playoffs. What is it? 5 out of the last 6 years, he's gone to the Stanley Cup final and has been, maybe not the main factor, but has been not just along for the ride. He's been a guy that has helped his teams perform in the playoffs. He had 10 playoff goals this year. That's only 3 fewer than Mitch Marner has had in 70 career playoff games. That speaks for itself. Now, thankfully, in those 5 appearances in the finals, Cory Perry has lost every time. So that makes it a little more acceptable for me. But in all seriousness, I understand the signing. And I don't push back against what it could mean for the Kings. I'm just telling you up front, I'm not rooting for the guy, and I don't like him, and I don't care for the idea of him in the Kings uniform. But I understand why he was signed. He could make the Kings better. He can give them an element that they've been lacking. And he does seem to come up big in the playoffs. And he is a pain in the ass to play against. And we could use a guy like that. So as much as I don't like him, I get the signing. And if I remove myself from my personal feelings, I can say I think this is a signing that could be beneficial for the Kings. And they're not investing a lot in him. It's a 1-year deal. So I get it. And Ken Holland has a relationship with him. He brought him into Edmonton, I think he brought him into Edmonton. Yeah. He brought him into Edmonton, so he knows the player. And the point, one of my friends texted me and said he's upset with Ken Holland because he doesn't have the pulse of the fan base. And that there's a lot of fans like me and apparently like my friend who are pissed off that Cory Perry is now wearing a Kings jersey. I will have to push back against that, though, honestly. I don't want my GM to make moves based on what he thinks fans will think of it. His job is to make the LA Kings the best team they can be. And yeah, he's not a Kings fan, so he doesn't have that history. He doesn't care about that. And he just got here. So I wouldn't expect him to understand what the pulse of Kings fans is. And like I said, I don't think he should be reactionary to that. So while I don't like the signing from a personal standpoint, because I don't like the player, I can understand the signing. And I'm not even necessarily saying it's bad signing. I think it could help the Kings. All right, the Kings signed 2 defensemen. One I like, one not so much. They inked 2 veteran blue liners, soon to be 34-year-old Brian Dumlan and 31-year-old Cody Cece. Dumlan has played over 700 NHL games, including 80 for the Ducks and Devils last season. He gets a 3-year deal worth $4 million per season. Cece gets a 4-year deal worth $4.5 million per season. I'm okay with Dumlan. I'm okay with his contract. 2-time Stanley Cup winner. He was a really good playoff performer for the Devils last year in the playoffs. Now, it wasn't a very long stay, but he was New Jersey's best defenseman in that series. Now, he's about the same size as Vladislav Gavrikov, 6'4", 215, defensive defenseman, left shot. He'll play on that side and he'll plug in for Vladislav Gavrikov. He had 3 goals and 22 points in 80 games. Is he a downgrade from Gavrikov? Yeah, but not a huge downgrade. And I'm okay with the contract that he got. So I'm okay on the Brian Dumlan signing. Is it a sexy signing? Is it, oh boy, this guy's going to be the difference maker? No, but I think he can be a solid second pairing defenseman for the Kings. Cody Cece played 85 games for the Dallas Stars last year and the San Jose Sharks. He's a right-handed shot. He's also a defensive defenseman. In those 85 games, he had 4 goals and 24 points. He's a former first-round pick. But this is now his 4th team since the start of the 2023-24 season. One of those teams was Edmonton, so he has a relationship with Ken Holland as well. And Ken Holland wanted to upgrade with size. CC 6'3" and 210 pounds. So he's done that. He's played a top 4 role in the past, but he was with the Stars last year, and it was a pretty mixed performance with Dallas. And I don't care for the contract that they gave him. The Kings are looking to upgrade from Jordan Spence. Okay, they did it size-wise and experience-wise, but is Cody Cece that big of an upgrade? And you're going to give him a 4-year deal and pay him $4.5 million per season? I mean, look, I just don't like that signing. I don't like the term. I'm not a big fan of the player. And again, all things being equal, there's some things he gives you maybe that Jordan Spence didn't. But again, Jordan is younger. There's still potential for growth there. And he's a lot cheaper. And you're not tied down to him for 4 years. So I'm okay with the Brian Dumlan signing. Not a big fan at all of the Cody Cece signing. The Kings also added veteran forward Joel Armia, another guy with size, 6'3", 215, 11 NHL seasons, 7 in Montreal, which is where he came from, has a relationship with Kings advisor Mark Bergevin when he was GM of the Canadiens. 81 games for Armia with the Habs last year, 11 goals, 29 points. He can kill penalties. He and Cory Perry should make the Kings' 4th line grittier and a lot more experienced. He gets a 2-year deal worth $2.5 million per season. That's a reasonable deal for reasonable term. I'm okay with the Joel Armia contract. Again, is it a sexy pick? Is it a pick that gets you fired up? No, but is he a guy that can help on the 4th line, make them better, grittier, more experience? Yes. Finally, the Kings signed goalie Anton Forsberg, 2 years, $2.25 million. He's 32, an 11-12-3 record in 30 games with the Senators last year, 2.72 goals against, a .901 save percentage, 3 shutouts, 10-year veteran. The Kings looking to upgrade from David Rittich, and that's fine. I don't know that they did this, though, with Anton Forsberg, and they're paying him 2 years and $2.25 million per year. You could get David Rittich back 1 year, $1 million, which is what he signed for with the Islanders. And I don't know that Anton Forsberg is much of an upgrade over David Rittich. I'd rather have the goalie for one less year, and a little more, over $1 million less. I'd frankly rather have Phoenix Copley in that role. He's 1 year, $1 million. Now, I think we'd all hoped Eric Portillo might be ready for that backup role. And he's obviously, I think, making less than $1 million. But the back injury is an issue. And he wasn't great last year. I don't think the Kings feel like he's ready for that, or maybe he might not even be healthy for that. But tying themselves down to Anton Forsberg for 2 years, not a big fan of that deal also. I think the Kings are done. We're going to talk more about that in a minute. And what does the Kings lineup now look like for next season? That's next on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. All right, so where are we now with the LA Kings? According to puckpedia.com, the Kings have $6 million in cap space left. But are they looking to add any more? I don't think so. I think the Kings are done. They still need to re-sign Alex Ferrier, so some of that money will go to him. But I know Nikolai Ehlers is still out there as a big name. We'll see. The Kings, to be able to sign him, the Kings would have to shed some players, and he's a free agent, so they could make some trades, I guess, to do that. But I think the Kings are done. I think they've made their moves that they're going to make this offseason, and they'll still sign Alex Ferrier. So I did want to mention real quick, Brock Besser was a big surprise. He was the main target for me as a Kings fan, right winger. I think he was the biggest surprise to me on the first day of free agency. He re-signed with Vancouver, and nobody thought that was going to happen. But he goes back with the Canucks, 7 years, $7.25 million. So that was a huge surprise. Let's take a look at the Kings lineup as it stands right now going into next season. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see it. I will obviously explain it if you're listening on the podcast. But, on paper, is Kopitar still the top line center? Possibly. But let's just, I think the top three lines, the top nine is pretty set. You've got Kopitar, Kempe, Kuzmenko, Byfield, Laferriere, and Fiala, Deneau, Fogle, and more. Those are going to be your top three lines in some order. Maybe Laferriere's on the third line. Maybe Fogle jumps up on the second line. But you're going to have, without question, your centers are going to be Kopitar, Byfield, and Deneau, your top three centers. The left wingers will be Kuzmenko, Fiala, and Fogle. The right wingers will be Kempe, Laferriere, and more. I think that's pretty much set unless there's some sort of a trade. Now, the fourth line, I do believe, has been upgraded by the Kings with Cory Perry on the left wing, Yoel Armia on the right wing, and either Samuel Helenius or Alex Turcotte centering that line. I would think with the whole idea of getting bigger and being more physical, that Samuel Helenius would have the leg up on Alex Turcotte, and Turcotte probably would be kind of the fill-in guy in any of the top nine spots if somebody gets hurt. So that's my read on the forwards as it stands right now. On the defense, you still got Doughty and Mikey Anderson as the top pairing. Brian Dumlan, I think, slides into Vladislav Gavrikov's spot on the second pairing on the left side. I think Brant Clark will be the right side defenseman on the second pairing. It's possible it could be Cody Cece. I hope not. Ken Holland did have some comments recently, and we'll get more into them on tomorrow's show as we talk about kind of the reaction from everyone that was traded, and obviously the Ken Holland comments on the moves as well. He said he wants Brant Clark to have a bigger role next year. To me, that has to mean he's on the second pairing. And I think that also means that Drew Doughty's minutes get cut back. I hope that's the case in both of those examples. But I've got Cody Cece and Joel Edmondson as the third pairing. And that's not a bad third pairing. It's certainly a veteran, big third pairing. The contracts for both those guys is another issue. But if you're just talking strictly from a hockey standpoint, it's not a terrible third pairing. Yes, the Kings have taken a step back with Vladislav Gavrikov being gone. I think Brian Dumlan is a decent replacement, but not as good, certainly, as Vladislav Gavrikov. In net, look, the Kings are going to ride or die with Darcy Kemper. If he gets hurt, they're screwed. Anton Forsberg is the backup. I don't think that's much of an upgrade. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think that's much of an upgrade from David Rittich, but we shall see. So if you're asking the question, are the Kings better today than they were at the end of the postseason? I think it's a loaded question. Vladislav Gavrikov being gone, one of your top players from last year, obviously that makes the Kings not as good defensively. I do think the fourth line is better for what that's worth. And apparently it's worth something because we saw the Kings top nine get overworked in the playoffs. Hopefully this is a fourth line that will carry part of the load in the postseason, that can keep the other lines a bit fresher. They can play their part, be physical, and that's part of the equation. If you watch the Florida Panthers, that fourth line was an important line for them. It needs to be for the LA Kings as well. So I actually do think that looking at the forward lineup, because of the fourth line being better, then maybe it's kind of a wash right now that the offense is a little bit better and the defense is a little bit worse and the goaltending is kind of status quo. So look, are any of these Kings additions anything to get excited about? No. That was the same story a year ago. And I don't blame anyone for not being excited about this. And I don't blame anyone for being upset about the Cory Perry situation. Maybe it's some of the older guys like me, the old get off my lawn guys. Maybe that's just, maybe the younger people, the younger fans, maybe the fans that don't have the history with Cory Perry and Anaheim, maybe they don't care. And it's fine. If you don't, that's fine. But I get that signing kind of taints things a bit. But I look, it's hard to say right now the Kings are a better team than they were last year. I don't have an issue saying that's probably not the case. Are they a better playoff roster than they were a year ago? With the fourth line improved, with more size, more experience. Look at the guys they added. Brian Dumlan, 6'4", 215, 12 years in the league. Cody Cece, 6'3", 210, 12 years in the league. Joel Armia, 6'3", 215, 11 years in the league. Cory Perry, 6'3", 200, 20 years in the league. Anton Forsberg, even 6'3", 200, 10 years in the league. The Kings got more experienced. They got bigger. And Ken Holland believes that will make it, and it may be deeper as far as the forwards go. And Ken Holland believes that will be the difference in the playoffs. And that's what we hope. That's what we all want. And the question will not be answered until about 11 months. And if these guys do get the Kings some playoff success, we'll all be happy. But like I said, I completely understand if no one's excited right now about this, if you're upset, especially about the Cory Perry signing, I get it. I understand it. But I also have to admit, I see where Ken Holland is coming from with these signings. He believes bigger, stronger, more experienced can be the tweaks necessary along with, of course, Quentin Byfield, Alex Ferrier, guys like that, taking a step forward. Adrian Kempe, Kevin Fiala continuing to be the players they've been, and none of the other guys taking a huge step back. Trevor Moore, you think, has got to be better than he was a year ago. Got to have Warren Fogle continue to be that player that he was a year ago. So obviously, like with every team, there's a lot of ifs and things have to happen. Again, am I excited? No. But I wasn't excited last year either. And frankly, those moves did work out. So we will keep our fingers crossed, I think, regardless of how not excited we are right now and regardless of what we think about Cory Perry, we'll all keep our fingers crossed that these are the right moves and these will get the Kings where we want them to be come playoff time. We all have our opinions right now. I'm sure we're going to have a very full inbox in the fan feedback show. I think I'll call it right now that we're going to have a 2-part fan feedback show coming up on Friday and Saturday. So looking forward to getting your opinions on what the Kings have done. If you'd like more LA Kings coverage, and also if you'd like to support your host, shoot me an email, lakingsextra@gmail.com, and I'll fill you in on the details there. That will do it for today's show for you everydayers, those of you who listen and watch Locked On LA Kings every day. Coming up on tomorrow's show, we'll get into what Ken Holland had to say about these latest moves and also hear from the players themselves as well. Hear what they have to say about becoming LA Kings. Thursday, we are scheduled to be joined by Eric Stevens, who covers the LA Kings for The Athletic. Be interested to get his thoughts on what the Kings have done here in free agency and more. And then, of course, as I said, Friday and Saturday, fan feedback shows with everything that's been going on with the LA Kings. Your chance to give your voice, your opinion about what's been going on with the team. If you want to send an email for the feedback show, the email address is lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE. And you can always post your thoughts if you're watching on YouTube in the comments section. We'd love you to stay connected with the show on social media, X, Twitter, Instagram. We are at Locked On LA Kings, and also a Facebook page as well. I haven't checked it today because I've been so busy. I don't know if anybody's even come on there, but facebook.com/LockedOnLA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you next time. And as always, go Kings go.